if an old vendetta threatened to take away everything you ever held dear? That's coming up next, right here on The Right Stuff. You are listening to the best, the only place to be on Tuesday night. That's right, you're listening to The Right Stuff, and you're at the right place at the right time. From England to Canada, from Detroit to the Poconos, we are showcasing Christian authors worldwide, giving you tips, tools, techniques, and resources for you, the writer, to hone and perfect your craft. Tune in every Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time right here on WPJC 104.5. And your host, Parker J. Cole. Hi, and welcome to the show. I'm so glad you are here for this edition of The Right Stuff. We're going to have an absolutely wonderful time with my guest co-host and contributor today, Pamela Poole. She is the author of the new book, Jaguar, which is part 3 of the Painter Place series, and we'll be talking about that in just a few moments. I also want to thank you for your support of my books, the Flesh series, The Cure, The Druid Spear under Parker Payne, and some other works I have out there, and some more coming up. I'm really excited about that. You should be seeing my next work coming up in April. For those of you wondering, where am I on Facebook? I'm just letting you know right now, I deactivated my Facebook account because I have a definite deadline I have to get to. So it's not that I've left the plan or anything, guys. You can still get a hold of me via email. But thanks so much for those of you who have reached out to me out of concern, wondering where is Parker. Parker is here, but Parker is under a deadline. I want to also tell you about me and my workshop going on at the Southern California Christian Writers Conference this year. It's from June 22nd through the 24th. So if you're in the Southern California area, you definitely want to come by that conference. It's going to be a lot of classes and workshops available for you. My 2 workshops that I'm going to be talking about is using harsh language and swear words in Christian fiction and taboo subjects in Christian fiction. I think it's a topic that a lot of us don't want to talk about or a lot of us shy away from. And as CBA guidelines start to kind of get a little bit softened because a lot of Christian readers are looking for a lot more content and a lot more diversity to their Christian fiction. These are some of the things that are going to be coming up. So I'm going to give you my ideas about these 2 topics, taboo subjects and harsh language and swearing. So I definitely want you to give me, come to that workshop and let's talk about it. We're going to have stuff for the conservative view and not something for a little more of the liberal view. But I think once you finish those workshops, you're going to have a good time and really understand where we're coming from that. As always, you can call into the show by calling in at 646-668-8485 and then press 1 to be live on air. Or you can hit me on Twitter at Parker J. Cole, #RightStuff with your questions and comments. We're going to go ahead, take a quick short break, and we'll be right back after these messages. Don't go anywhere. More with Parker and her guest on the Right Stuff Radio Show. We'll be right back.
Are you a reader looking for more compelling Christian fiction? Maybe something a little more edgy or a bit more real? Are you tired of most Christian fiction shying away from the truth and settling for a rose-tinted view of the world and its issues? Or are you an author who has a compelling story to tell, but you're afraid it doesn't jive with today's brand of Christian or secular fiction? Are you tired of Christian publishers telling you that your content is too edgy? Or maybe you've tried submitting your content under the radar to secular publishers only to be told your themes are a bit too religious? We invite you to take a look at the Crossover Alliance. We are an online publishing company that specializes in edgy Christian speculative fiction with Christian themes and real-world content. Our company is formed from authors and readers just like you who are breaking into the mainstream and Christian markets with this compelling genre. Head over to the www.thecrossoveralliance.com for all the details on who we are, what we do, and what we accept. Right now, if you sign up for our email newsletter, you'll receive a free digital copy of our first short story anthology. Check us out today and help us spread the word about the Crossover Alliance, where light shines brighter in the darkness.
God gives humans the gift of making amazing stories to glorify Him. At speculativefaith.com, our ministry is to help fans explore fantasy, science fiction, supernatural stories, and beyond from an intentional and biblical Christian perspective. We share daily articles and have extensive archives tackling hot topics like end times beliefs, the art of writing, creative excellence in the Christian subcultures, discernment, sex, magic, Harry Potter, and space aliens and the Bible. If you are a parent or anyone else with a discriminating palate, our reviewers explore fantastical novels, movies, television, and games in light of God's beauty, goodness, and truth. Want to find Christian stories? The Spec Faith Library lists every fantastical novel we can find from a Christian author. It's all part of our mission to discern, engage, and enjoy fantastical human creativity in honor of our Creator, Jesus Christ. SpeculativeFaith.com, exploring fantastical stories for God's glory.
We're back, and you're hanging out with the queen of Tuesday night, Parker J. and her guests, right here on The Right Stuff. Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Right Stuff here on WPJC 104.5. So glad you are here with me to talk to my wonderful guest, co-host and contributor today, Pamela Poole. Pamela, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, and I hope you are too.
I really am, and I'm just so excited to be talking about your book today because it really just sounds so intriguing, lots of good stuff going on. But before we get into your book, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Pamela Poole?
Pamela Poole was first an artist who, late in life, decided to start writing novels. And the reason I did was because my son challenged me. I know that's a little bit unusual, a direction to be taking. A lot of people just always feel like they were going to be an author or whatever. You know, it was like their life dream. And it totally did not happen that way for me. It was a challenge. And basically that series was born in a dream that I had when we were still living in South Carolina. And I got up, I jotted down notes. And later when my son challenged me to write the kind of book I wanted to read, I was a little frustrated with fiction. And he challenged me to solve that problem by writing a book. And I did, and I thought maybe only my family and friends would ever see it, but I knew it was good. And so within 3 weeks and querying to 3 publishers, I had a contract. So I figured that was a sign that I should keep it up, and it turned into a series.
What's so exciting when I hear things like that is the fact that, you know, most of us, like myself included, you know, we always wanted to be a writer. That writer was in us. But then your son said, Mom, why don't you go ahead and write the books you want to read? You know, however Andy said it, you know. He said, write the books you want to read. And that's what you did, you know. And how exciting is that for you as an author, as a person, artist in general, to create your own your own artwork? Which is, you know, I always saw like a God complex because God is a creator, and we also reflect that creation within us through art, you know. And then you found out that you have another good niche into writing, you know. So I think that's great because I can't draw stick people, Pamela. The only thing I can do is, you know, maybe draw a circle, it looks kind of squiggly, and maybe a triangle, but I can't draw stick people. So I'm really excited to know that you are an artist. Now, do you do your own covers? Do you let your services out for other people, or?
I do my own cover paintings, and so far the only person that has asked for me to do a cover for them is my son, and I'm working on a cover design for a story series that he's working on. But no one else has asked, so I don't really know if I do covers for other people yet. I haven't had that to come up, but I also like to do paintings that are inspired by the stories themselves, not only the cover, but paintings that happen inside them, because this is about a story about an artist. And then I turn those into coloring pages that are free downloads on my website for people who find solace or stress relief in coloring. And that venue is basically my hashtag healing through art direction that I go in.
You know, I find that fascinating because there are a lot of adults who are getting adult coloring books and adult pages like you just mentioned, and they're using it to stress out. What is it about coloring and art and those type of things? What makes us get de-stressed from that? I mean, have you ever been, I know you're a painter, so I'm assuming that when you paint, I think some stress comes away from it. You know, what are your thoughts about that?
Yes, that is so true. The reason that I began the coloring pages direction, I already knew from teaching students for years that art was a therapy, but I really got into it from my own standpoint through my website whenever I lost my granddaughter last spring, and I had already been scheduled in a art workshop that cost me a lot of money. It was with a famous artist, and my husband said, "Don't cancel this. You're already committed. Go ahead. I know it's fresh. You know, you're still feeling like you're not ready, but go ahead and do it. It'll be therapy." And so I did, and it was very therapeutic. And as I worked through that, I journaled through it, I blogged through it, and I decided that this was something I wanted to do from a healing direction for other people. And I looked into more of the counseling side, just looking on blogs and stuff about what counselors say about coloring. And I discovered that so many people like that creativity within lines. It's like they feel freer to express themselves within those lines that confine them to a page. It's something they can control in a world where there is very little that they can control,
That's
personally. And so I decided to go with that. But now my pages are a little more free than the very tight coloring pages that are on the market because as a painter, I try to do things in a free, painterly manner. And for me, the really tiny details are a little hard to do just because it makes me feel encapsulated instead of free. And so I think it just depends on why you do it and what sort of pages that you like. But I find that artists typically like a freer picture to paint in than they do those little tiny, tight spaces.
Because this is the expression of creativity, having that freedom to create. But then I can also understand how people can control this thing. I can control this. So this is one thing I can do. It can be whatever color I want. It can, reflect whatever kind of personality I have going on, anything. It can control that. And I think there's something to be said for that. Now, as an artist, especially as you're a painter, as a painter, I got to ask, because we mentioned how we kind of all have a quote-unquote God complex when it comes to our art, because that's the creativity side that God gave us that reflects his own creative nature. So as an artist, what's going through your mind as you get ready to do a subject for a painting or you're doing a cover for a painting? What's going through your mind? Let's say it's not for like a book cover like for your son, but, you just want to paint something. What's going through your mind? How are you getting ready and prepared for that?
Usually I am inspired by something I see. And one of my favorite artists is the genius of all time, Leonardo da Vinci. And his whole life was about pursuing beauty and truth. And so that is one of the things I start to look for. I ask myself when I see something I want to paint, why do I want to paint that? What is it that I want to express to other people about that particular subject? And so I really observe it closely, and I think about it a lot. And then I go ahead and block in large shapes of it to see if it's going to work. And I pray about it. I know that sounds a little trite. So many people are like, oh, she prays. Christians are supposed to anyway. But honestly, I feel like if I am going to express something to the world, I want him to be in it. Basically, I'm in this to glorify the Lord, not myself. And so that is the outpouring that goes into it. And then somehow all these years and years of study and skill start to bring it all together. But I honestly believe that in the beginning, the inspiration comes through the first creator of all time, the creator of the universe.
Amen. I remember, I think I mentioned this on the show before. I remember that movie, A Beautiful Mind, with Russell Crowe. And in it, Jennifer Connelly, who's eventually becomes his wife, she's looking at a painting. And she makes a comment that says, God must be a painter because there's so many pretty colors. And I never really forgot that line in the movie because it kind of reflected just in a small way the vastness of our Lord, his creativity. When you look at the universe and you see the nebulas and you see the clouds and you see planets and you're finding all kind of exoplanets all the time and you're going, that's why you kind of think of David,
it's really astounding.
Yeah, that's like David said, what is man that you are mindful of him? In Psalms 8, what is man that you are mindful of him? And so that creativity that he gave us, I'm always so honored to be a writer. I'm always so honored to have that one art.
Yes.
Like I said, I can't draw stick people, but I can write. And that's something God gave me. And I always want to encourage people with that. Now, God gave you two gifts. He gave you the gift to, well, not just two, but when it comes to art, I guess He gave you the gift of, painting and drawing, and He gave you the gift of writing. So I think that goes well in hand. And some people may have more, some people may have less, but He gave us that creative ability within us. Not just art related too. It can be science related, whatever related. It can be related. I think everything's an expression of creativity. And so you're a painter. You use the painting to kind of de-stress. You want to reflect God's beauty in everything that you do. Now, let's kind of go into your newest series here. Now, your series is called Painter Place. And without giving us any, major plot lines or anything, tell us about Painter Place.
All right, Painter Place. You know how we creatives, things are about more than what you see on the surface. And Painter Place is actually sort of a placeholder for people to consider what their own life is like. And Painter Place is like a representation of that, whatever that means to a person, themselves. For me, of course, it had to do with art as well. And so an artist is my main character, and she comes from a line of artists that settled that island of Painter Place. It's a fictional place in South Carolina, above Charleston, and not quite to Myrtle Beach yet, somewhere in the Polly Island area. And that is where this is centered in, because my creative muse is Charleston. And so that is the setting, but I take the characters into all kinds of other settings. That is their home base, which to me represents who you are in person, your home life, your family. But you go out into the world and you do all kinds of other things and interact in other ways. So in Painter Place, the artist ends up in Mavagassi, which is a harbor in England. And then in Hugo, after the home island is devastated by the Hurricane Hugo, Caroline, the main character, has to go to France. And that is during the setting when Van Gogh's 100th anniversary of his life there happens. And so I dive into a lot of behind-the-scenes things that I don't think people have really thought of before about Van Gogh and his life. And then Jaguar is going to take her totally, none of these places are really places she means to go, but something happens that's a catalyst for her to have to travel away from her comfort zone. And in Jaguar, that is the most intense one yet. It's like a Romancing the Stone adventure, but it also goes into a little bit of the missions aspect of the dark spiritual things that go on in the mission field that you hear so many missionaries speak about, that here in America we brush that off as, oh, that was some kind of natural phenomena or, something like that. We blow supernatural things off very easily here that are commonplace out in the mission field. And that's something that's going to happen in the Amazon jungle in Jaguar, and it's a very unexpected story, I believe. I've had some of my reviewers tell me, I can't get my mind out of Jaguar. It's like I'm still living it. I'm so affected by it. So, as the newest one, I'm, of course, getting more reaction from it. But it is, I think it can be read without reading Painter Place and Hugo, and yet I think it's going to make readers want to go back and read Painter Place and Hugo.
What's so exciting about talking to Pamela is that we are just getting started with her book. So if you want to weigh in on our topic, you certainly can by calling in at 646-668-8485 and then press 1 to be live on air. Or you can hit me on Twitter at ParkerJCo, #WriteStuff with your questions and comments. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break. When we come back, more with Pamela Poole and Jaguar. Don't go anywhere. More with Parker and her guest on the Right Stuff Radio Show. We'll be right back.
Question: if you write a book, everybody will rush out to buy it. Obvious answer: no. If you were a celebrity or if you had a huge marketing budget, then maybe you can get a lot of exposure for your book. Another solution would be to check out joeytweets.com. joeytweets.com is a promotion and marketing service with access to over 1/3 of a million followers on Twitter. joeytweets.com has 3 packages available to fit any budget. That's joeytweets.com. joeytweets.com. Get some serious exposure for your books.
Engaging the culture's imagination through speculative fiction, the Untold Podcast produces audio fiction from a Christian worldview. Find us over at untoldpodcast.com, where we partner with authors to tell science fiction, fantasy, supernatural, and horror stories. Find links at untoldpodcast.com to subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, and a variety of other platforms. Each month we produce high-quality audio fiction that's free to download and free to listen. Our submissions are open, and we're always looking to add another great story to over 24 hours of narrative entertainment. Find all of our audio fiction over at www.untoldpodcast.com.
Have you read the latest issue of Sormag Digital, the award-winning literary magazine for multicultural readers and writers? Sormag Digital is available quarterly and showcases interviews with the best authors in multicultural literature. Sormag Digital features craft and business articles for those interested in writing. If you're looking for a good book, check out our book reviews on what's hot in multicultural literature. For writers looking for new readers to get in front of, Sormag Digital is the perfect place to introduce your book. We offer advertising spaces that fit your promotional budget. Get your free subscription on sormag.com or order a print issue on magcloud.com. If you would like more information about Sormag Digital, check us out on sormag.com or contact us at sormag@yahoo.com. Sormag Digital is the magazine for multicultural readers and writers.
We're back, and you're hanging out with the queen of Tuesday night, Parker J. and her guests, right here on The Right Stuff. Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Right Stuff here on PJC 104. I am so glad you are here with me for this edition of The Right Stuff. We are talking to author Pamela Poole. She is the author of the new book, Jaguar, which is 3 of the Painter Place series. And again, Pamela, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. Really appreciate having you here.
Oh, I love being here.
Now, one thing I want to know about Painter Place, and I'll preface this with a dream of mine I've had. I've wanted to own my own island, so I kind of want to know so much about. I've always wanted my own island, just somewhere, so it makes me mad. I say, you know what, I'm going home to, Chester Island or whatever, So tell us a little bit about Painter Place. What is the atmosphere like at Painter Place? How many, is it palm trees? Is it just, what kind of island is it?
Yes, Painter Place is what many people would think of as an idyllic escape, a place that you want to go for peace and relaxation, and for many people a vacation because they can't own their own island. But in Painter Place, that island was actually settled by someone who was persecuted, a religious persecution that was going on back in England in the late 1600s. And so Caroline Painter, my main character in these 3 novels, she comes from an ancestry that includes religious persecution. That is why her ancestor came. And at that time, it wasn't hard to get land here in the Carolinas. And it was before North and South Carolina were split. And so that island was available, and they settled there. It was very difficult, as you know, early settling in the United States, what became America. But that is how Painter Place was first settled. And somehow, through God's provision, that island has always been preserved in her family because the owners intentionally lived their lives so that it could be preserved in their family responsibly, and it always had to be passed on to another working artist, and it's always been open to creative people who want to come there on retreats, either artists, authors, musicians, any kind of creative people were welcomed with open arms to come and visit for a retreat or something on Painter Place. So that is how my main character, Caroline, has been raised on the island. They think of it as a responsibility and a gift that they can give to other people, and not as something that they should hoard and shelter from other people to have all to themselves. It's something they want to share.
I can tell you right now, Pam. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. But that is the essence of what the island is about. And then how the characters are raised is intentional as well. Every generation could destroy everything that's been built for the past 300 years. The island could be let go due to mismanagement. It could be that the next generation doesn't produce an artist who wants to stay and live that responsibility. So it could be lost from generation to generation, just as our own faith and everything can be lost from generation to generation as well. It's something that they have passed on, and just fortunately at the setting of my books, someone has still taken up that torch.
Well, I love the idea of Paint Your Place, and I like the history behind it. And I can tell you right now, there's not an artist in the world who wouldn't want to paint a place they can go to right now. There's not an artist on the planet.
That's correct.
I love the
Any
idea
piece we can find is wonderful.
Yes, any piece is somewhere, And we always say, well, just imagine a desert island. I say your imagination can only go so far, especially when you hear the trains outside of your window and the cars honking and the kids hollering and all that kind of stuff. Your imagination can only go so far. So you wrote Carolyn Painter throughout your whole series. And one thing I want to delve into is, what type of character? Does she start as one type of character, then over the course of the series, does she develop into someone else, or is she just a strong person in the beginning who just goes through a lot of things? Tell us a little bit about Carolyn in the book.
Caroline goes through a lot of character development, but it is hard won. And one thing that interests me about people in general is that we pray for sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows in our life every day, but then we go entertain ourselves with movies and books about people that are going through horrible things. And that's an irony to me that we do that, but it is like real life. And Caroline is actually named for growing up in the Carolinas. That's where I came up with the name for Carolina. She's a Carolina painter, and that is her name, Caroline Painter. And she begins in Painter Place as a 20-year-old who thinks something has been going on for the last 4 years that has not in reality been going on. And she discovers it in a hard way. You actually meet the character who is Jaguar, and you don't know it in the beginning pages of Painter Place. So the book Jaguar actually began in the beginning of Painter Place. And fans did not want that character gone. And so I had to keep him in the story. But, yes, that is what happens. In the beginning, she goes through a life-changing event to where she has to decide if she is going to leave the island or if she's going to take on the responsibility of keeping the generational theme going and keep the island. And then in Hugo, obviously anyone who has been through it, you may be too young, Parker, but I went through Hugo at the hurricane, and it was a monster in the dark of night. It came in the middle of the night. No one could see it coming. And the scariest part was you didn't know what it was doing outside because you couldn't see, and you had no power to look outside to see anything. And so obviously with 20-foot waves coming in to the area around Charleston, it was going to do some damage. And so Painter Place is scoured. And a lot of things that Caroline held dear all her life are gone. And she's going to have to struggle with holding on to the past and whether she can move forward. Her hometown begins to turn against her. And there is a lot that she has to face during Hugo that changes the core of who she is. Then her next big change in life is going to come in Jaguar, and that is the one where she almost ends up in a PTSD sort of situation to where she's got to learn to cope with, after a horrendous ordeal, she comes back to this idyllic Painter Place setting and has to try to figure out if she can be ordinary again because she's gone through such extraordinary things. How do you go back to being who you were or even seeing things in the same way anymore that once were important to you? Now they're shallow. And so each book takes you into her maturing as a woman. By the time you get to Jaguar, she is having her 30th birthday. She's gone through a lot since Painter Place when she was 20 years old. it's a lot like what life does to all of us. It teaches us a lot of things in landmarks along the way. That in the Bible, they used to set up stones to remember events and things that the Lord brought the Israelites through, and that is sort of what I was thinking in each of these books. Is that each book takes her through things that change her so dramatically, not just a little bit, but absolutely dramatically, and those become landmarks that are set up as markers in her life to look back on.
It's interesting because I can really resonate with that when things happen that are out of your control, and especially when it comes to something like Hugo. Like you said, I was too young to remember Hugo at all, but I don't even know if he was born or taken, no idea. But you see the catastrophe, like with Hurricane Katrina. You remember the catastrophe that happened from that,
yes.
And then some of the other devastations, like the tsunami that hit Haiti and all these other things. And I want you to kind of speak to that really quickly, because there could be someone in our listening audience right now who is going through a trial like that, and especially when it's, for the lack of a better term, like a nature thing, like Hugo was something nature happened. And there are a lot of questions that come to mind. Let's say they may have lost a loved one in the middle of a storm or a tornado. How would you encourage that person suddenly feeling the problems of that event? How would you encourage them?
I like to look at it this way. Now, I am a Christian, so I have a different perspective than an unbeliever would, but there is nothing the Lord is not in and nowhere we can be. And that is mentioned a lot in Jaguar, is that they are constantly remembering that there's nowhere they can be that the Lord doesn't know that they are there.
Amen.
And that he has not abandoned them. People think that the Lord isn't paying attention. Maybe he started things up and he's not paying attention or whatever, but he is in everything, and nothing is wasted. Nothing you go through, no relationship that's ever happened in your life is wasted. He is doing something that he picks up the thread and the tapestry on later in your life. And while it is true that we don't know from minute to minute what is going to happen, actually the last two lines of my book, Jaguar, sort of speak to that when I say, tonight he ran with the Jaguar on a dangerous mission. Someone like her would get to go home, but no one anywhere knew what tomorrow would bring. And that's how our life is. But that's also what shapes our faith, because if we were always assured every day what was going to happen, first of all, it would be boring, and most of us would rebel against that. But also, we wouldn't develop the faith to know that the Lord is walking with us. We aren't walking by ourselves through these things, and he has not turned his back. We live in a cursed world where things have to happen because of the curse back in Genesis, but that doesn't mean that the Lord left us on our own to just endure it.
I like how you say that, especially how you illustrate this through Carolyn's life throughout this series. And we're going to talk more about it in just a few moments. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. But what I really want to encourage our listeners today is go ahead, buy a copy of Jaguar. It's available on Amazon.com or wherever books are sold. And if you like Jaguar, you're going to go ahead and get the first two of the series called Painter, Place, and Hugo. You're definitely going to enjoy those books. So go ahead, love on my sister today. Buy a copy of her books today. Again, they're available on Amazon.com or wherever books are sold. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go anywhere. More with Parker and her guests on the Right Stuff Radio Show. We'll be right back.
Has God called you to be a pastor or leader, but the men and women in your church won't let you speak because you're a female? Is the call to minister strong on your life, but you hesitate because you think the Bible tells women to be silent in the church? I'm Jory Micah, and I am here to tell you, sister, that together we can break the glass steeple. I fight and advocate for gender equality in the church, and there are others with me who are holding up the banner. Subscribe to my blog at JoryMicah.com for interviews, commentary, and uplifting words to give you the motivation to answer the call to ministry. Together, we can break the glass steeple and inspire all of God's children, men and women alike, to answer the call to ministry.
Hi, friends. I'm Dr. Mike Spaulding, inviting you to listen to great Bible teaching on the Transforming Word radio show and podcast. All shows are available on iTunes and Stitcher. Search for the Transforming Word and subscribe for notification of new shows. You may also listen to every episode from my website, www.thetransformingword.com. In addition to the Transforming Word, I want to make you aware of my interview, news, and opinion show, Soaring Eagle Radio. If you're interested in engaging conversations related to a variety of topics not covered by typical news media, then check out Soaring Eagle Radio. You may subscribe to the show on iTunes and Stitcher, and you may listen to every episode on my website, www.soaringeagleradio.com. For more information on my ministries, please email me, Pastor Mike at cclohio.com. Again, that's Pastor Mike at cclohio.com. Thank you for listening to these shows, and please leave me a note when you do. God bless you today.
We're back, and you're hanging out with the queen of Tuesday night, Parker J. and her guests, right here on The Right Stuff. Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Right Stuff here on WPJC 104.5. So glad you're here with me. We're having just a wonderful time talking to my guest co-host and contributor today, Pamela Poole. She is the author of the new book, Jaguar, as well as the whole series, Painter Place, as well as some other works as well. So, Pamela, once again, thank you so much for joining us on the show. I don't know why I keep wanting to call you Paula Poole. I keep slipping my mouth before I call you Paula. My cousin's name is Paula, but there's not a Poole there. Interestingly enough, if you talk about history, interestingly enough, when my family was tracing our ancestry back, we do have Pooles in our family. I think they were slave owners, and we do have Pooles in our family. So that's kind of fascinating there. I'm not saying that you are you are slave owners like that, but it's interesting. You know, it was the Poole. I forgot the name of the family, but it was Poole Thomas, I think. So, you know, a lot of people who listen to this show, they want to know, how do you start your writing process, and how long does it take to write and stuff like that. So I want to kind of get into the mechanics of your writing. So when you started writing Painter Place and your other books in the series, how long did it take that to happen for you?
Each of my books, if I would stick to it, like Painter Place and Hugo, where I was able to write uninterrupted, except for art jobs, for private commissions and things. But if I'm basically allowed a few hours a day or a few hours a week, if it came to that, to write, it takes me about as long as having a baby, about 9 months. But now I write about 120,000 words in my books. So for some people, that's 2 books. So, it may take me a little bit more. Plus, it's not my only vocation, so, I can't just commit myself to only that. Now, Jaguar, I thought I was on the track for the typical 9 months, but then we had my the grand twins. My grandson and granddaughter were 2.5 months early last February, and then, of course, we lost the little granddaughter at 2 months old. And so a lot of my life was tied up in that process, and things got delayed. I didn't feel like writing for a little bit. And so Jaguar, probably, if I would go back and look at the actual time spent writing, I think it would still amount to about 9 months. Now, why that happens to be my magic number, I don't know, but 9 months is about how long it takes me. And it's part-time. It's not, I could be faster if I weren't a painter and I didn't have my family as my priority.
Oh, well, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm sorry to hear about your granddaughter passing away last year. I know that's a really tough thing to go through. I know as a writer, some people, they say, well, I can't ever think. I can't ever get my thoughts together. I can't do this. And there's always different reasons why some people can't start their narratives or their works. So what do you do to kind of get into the mojo of your work?
Well, I have sort of the opposite problem. I'm a very unique personality, And I am always thinking, I can't go to the grocery store without thinking about the vegetables in a creative painting or something. So I'm always in creative mode. However, to sit down and have the discipline to do something with those thoughts, that is a skill. And for me, the thing that works the best is for my story process anyway. I begin with Leonardo da Vinci's method of mind mapping. Have you ever heard of mind mapping?
I have heard of it, but go ahead and explain it to those who haven't.
Yes, that is when you sit down. I'll tell you how it works for me. You can actually find this online in a lot of places, but I draw a circle in the middle of a piece of paper, and in that circle I put what I think is going to be the title of my book. If I can't think of a title, I have my main idea. And then I think in terms of threes for some reason. It's an art thing, but I carry it over into my writing. And so I always put a line and a little cloud from that little middle circle. This starts to look like a tinker toy. I put a line jutting out from that middle circle. I put a little cloud, and I say part 1. And then I put another little cloud about a third of the way, and I got part 2. And then another one, and it's part 3. Then I branch off from that, the part 1, part 2, or part 3, into little things I want to happen in the story. And I think in terms of beginning, middle, and end, which are the basic components of any story. You've got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then I start thinking, I branch off with little things about who the characters are, maybe more about them. Each little circle carries some branches and other little circles from them, and so it really does start to look like a page with a tinker toy growing in it. And that is how I map out what I'm going to be and what I'm going to do with my basic components. As I write, however, you probably know this as an author, something will come up that inspires something else, and I try to have all my research done in the beginning, but I'll end up running off and finding more research on something that just popped into my head that I didn't know at the time. So, of course, that's only a basic outline, if you will, and then I go in and I start filling it in. I keep it simple. I just use a Word document, and I start in that direction. I can make it more complicated later with my editing software and things like that. But to begin with, I just get that story down while it's flowing in a Word document.
I like that because some of us are pantsers and some of us are outliners, and I know plotters. I know for myself I'm a hybrid, but I'm not quite a plotter. And I actually try to – this is kind of funny, Pamela. I actually plotted out one book for several months. I spent several months plotting. Plot. I had characters. I had everything set. I even researched where it's going to take it. Place in Michigan. I had this going, that going. I started to write the story. I had plotted maybe 11 chapters. I started to write the story. It blew up in my face because all of a sudden that it wasn't working anymore. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to do what's good for me. I'm just going to do what's good for me. And it sounds like that mind mapping may actually work for me because you can get like a general idea of what you're going to say, and then you can use that and build on it. And I think that's important. People need that cohesiveness that outlining and plotting can do, but they also need that freedom to also go where you want to go, you know. But like
that
some people,
the word I was thinking of.
Yeah, some people in our writer circles. The writer circles we probably both run in, there's some diehard plots. Like, if you just plot your book, then you don't have any problems. I said, I tried. I actually tried. I said, I'm going to do something unlike myself, and I'm going to plot. And it literally 11 chapters was plotted out, and I just threw the whole thing away. I said, you know what? I'm going to stay true to me. But that's fine.
You should do that. You should. Yes. That's a gift.
Like
I think we are each uniquely gifted, and I personally think that mind maps work better for me because of the word you used, freedom. I'm not confined to an outline where I've got to have a specific sentence written down to describe something. I can just have the main idea written in a little cloud and then delve into it as I come to that part and not have this all planned out from the whole beginning with all these little innuendo things. I can actually just work within the structure that I have, one thing at a time. And that's how I can bite off little bits instead of being overwhelmed with the whole animal all at one time.
Makes sense to me, and I like that. I think it reflects your creativity too as a painter. That reflects that visuality. Not visuality. That's not even a word. That visual aspect that you need when you do your paintings and translate that to your works. So, how have readers responded to the whole Painter's Place series?
So far, I've had nothing but good feedback, and it turns out that they really get involved with the characters. They want to know them. And as a new writer, you know that it's difficult to build a tribe. You know, it's difficult to lead people to your books in a world, a market that is swamped with books. How do readers even find the good ones? That's a challenge. But the people who have found my books get so involved that they give me feedback about what they would like to see coming up. And that actually, that feedback from Painter Place and Hugo was the birth of Jaguar. And I took a character they could not bear to part with and brought him in to be the main character. He is the Jaguar. He is the main character in the third book, other than Caroline, who is always going to be the main character thread once she is born. Now, the next book is going to take everyone back to 1960. It's called Landmark, and it is the parents of the group that comes along in 1985 in Painter Place.
I love when you do interverse books, when you do that interverse thing, because you get so involved with the characters. And when you have a tribe that wants the story to continue, they want to know everything. You know, what happened back in the day, what's going to happen if you. I love that. And readers definitely love that. I think that's a very big technique that you're doing is keeping it within the universe of Painter Place. You know, whether you go backwards or forwards, just keeping it there because more people are like, oh, okay. And I know some people who may stumble upon it a little bit later, they may actually read Landmark first once you complete that and then read it all in order, you know. And I love when authors
it will
do
be in
that
chronological order.
And I like when that happens because you have that connection with the book. I remember I was reading some series, it was years ago now, and you're just, when you read everything, when everything came together, you're like, oh my gosh, this is such a good series, you know. So I think that's a very smart move on your end, you know. And so you already told us that the next book coming out will be Landmark. I was going to ask, what do you think your debut will be for that book?
Well, that book is going to actually take a character that he was introduced vaguely in Hugo. He came across in a big way in Jaguar. He is actually the father behind the scenes that no one knew about in Painter Place of one of the characters there. And he is going to get his daughter together with a Painter Place heir. And he is behind the scenes doing it. She doesn't even know her father. And so a lot of the next book is going to show how God has been working through the prayers of generations of painters. The books are not preachy at all. They're unexpected. I do not like preachy, canned romance kinds of stories. And so I think even men will like my books. But it's not preachy, and yet when I mention faith, I have to do that because that is how I think and how I react in my own life. It's what I know, and so my characters do it. But in Painter Place, that is a key theme that has kept the island in the hands of the family all these years. And Landmark will show how that has been going on in the first part of the 20th century and how it came to play in the marriages of those people involved. Even marriages, I think a lot of people think are their own business. Who they marry is their business. Nobody else needs to be concerned about it. But the Painter Place series, one of the running threads through that is to show that who you bring into your family affects not only the direction of your family, but the dynamics of your family. And so it is other people's business, and that is something that's going to show through, although it's a voluntary process and the whole thing, it is also going to be something I hope people will think about.
That's fascinating because, especially in a Western world, we tend to frown upon those who have practiced arranged marriages and stuff like that. Like I remember a friend of mine, he had a semi-arranged marriage. He's Hindu, and he had a semi-arranged marriage when he met his wife several years ago. And I say semi because he actually knew her for longer than 4 months. He actually knew her for a year, and then she came over from India, and they ended up getting married probably about several months later, and he knew her a little bit longer than typical. But his cousin, who had an arranged marriage, she only knew her soon-to-be husband for 4 months before they actually got married. But everything was determined by the families. The families had to agree on this marriage. The families, and then by them being Hindu, they, did all the various, religious ceremonies and, stuff like that. But it was fascinating because when I talked to an Arabic lady, she said, well, arranged marriages don't just consider, oh, yeah, we can fall in love later, but it's like, how are you going to raise your children? What kind of financial stuff do you have? What type of beliefs do you have? Which is, I think, vitally important, So, so we can't really frown too much on them. So I really like where you're going with that. And I think that'll be a good thing to explore in the next book, is that aspect. And interestingly enough, Pamela, when I first started the show 4 years ago now, my very first show was entitled Arranged Marriages versus Romantic Love. That was my very first show I ever had when I started the show 4 years ago. So I actually like that topic a lot. I think it's a fascinating one. When we come back, we're going to finish our talk with Pamela Poole. You still have time to weigh in on our topic and talk to Pamela by calling in at 646-668-8485. Then press 1 to be live on air. Or you can hit me on Twitter at ParkerJCo, #RightStuff, with your questions and comments. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break. Back after these messages. Don't go anywhere. More with Parker and her guests on the Right Stuff Radio Show. We'll be right back.
Hi. Is your book club in need of some fresh and exciting questions to ask club members and authors at your next book club meeting? Literations, the book conversation game, is 70 thought-provoking questions to really get into an in-depth discussion about the books you and your club members are reading. These questions really get into the characters, the storyline, and into the author's head. These questions may just give you and your book club members a whole new way to get into a new conversation, a literation. Literations is also a great set of tools for bloggers, interviewers, and authors to use as discussion questions. Are you ready to get lit? Please visit our website at litversations.com, LITVERSATION.com. And please like our Facebook page at Simply Said Reading Accessories. Thank you.
God gives humans the gift of making amazing stories to glorify Him. At speculativefaith.com, our ministry is to help fans explore fantasy, science fiction, supernatural stories, and beyond from an intentional and biblical Christian perspective. We share daily articles and have extensive archives tackling hot topics like end times beliefs, the art of writing, creative excellence in the Christian subcultures, discernment, sex, magic, Harry Potter, and space aliens and the Bible. If you are a parent or anyone else with a discriminating palate, our reviewers explore fantastical novels, movies, television, and games in light of God's beauty, goodness, and truth. Want to find Christian stories? The Spec Faith Library lists every fantastical novel we can find from a Christian author. It's all part of our mission to discern, engage, and enjoy fantastical human creativity in honor of our Creator, Jesus Christ. SpeculativeFaith.com, exploring fantastical stories for God's glory.
We're back, and you're hanging out with the queen of Tuesday night, Parker J. and her guests, right here on The Right Stuff. Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Right Stuff here on WPJC 104.5. Can you believe it? 4 years ago it was just me, and now the Lord has blessed me where I have a whole network of great programming for you to listen to almost every day of the week. Sundays we have Dovetails with Deborah Lassiter. That airs at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You like testimonials, random acts of kindness, and Holy Spirit-filled scriptures, you definitely want to tune in to Dovetails with Deborah. On Mondays we have the Marriage Playbook with coaches Eric and Fran. If you want real talk about relationships, whether you're married, engaged, looking to get engaged, or you're single, you want to tune it in to the Marriage Playbook with coaches Eric and Fran at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, Mondays. And then let's talk about it. We're going to talk about autism. We're going to talk about domestic violence. We're going to talk about policing in America. And we're going to talk about it with my host, Jenny White. And that's Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on WPJC. And then keep it with me, Parker J. Cole. On Tuesdays, I showcase Christian authors worldwide at 7 o'clock. And on Saturday, I talk about things in, out, and about the church. At 2 o'clock Eastern time on Saturdays. So you want to keep it here on PJC Media, Real Christian Talk Radio. In the last few minutes we have left with Pamela, I want to, first of all, Pamela, thank you so much for being with us on the show. Your answers and your books have been such an enlightenment to us. And I just want to read a quick review that we got for Jaguar. And Jaguar says, my first time reading books by this author. It certainly won't be the last. Great story. I love the characters. My heart was torn between the prince and the jaguar. Very refreshing to see how the author used scripture throughout the book to show the faith of the characters. Loved it. And that's just one review of the Painter Place series. So go ahead, get a copy of each of these books today. Love 'em, my sister. Go to Amazon.com and get your copy, and make sure you leave a review. We authors love reviews. It helps us breathe at night when we get reviews. So go ahead, buy a copy of Painter Place series today. You won't be disappointed. Pamela, this show is always about encouraging authors to write. God has given them the gift to write, and they haven't picked up the pen to do that yet. In the few moments we have left, we got about 2 minutes left, can you encourage those authors out there to pick up the pen and write stuff?
Yes, I think that every person, because we are created in God's image, we have a creative bent towards something. If yours is writing, then you should definitely be pursuing that. Even if you never publish, you might be a blessing to your family or friends just by writing something that you share around your family. If you're too shy to share it broadly and put yourself in front of the world as a market, you can do that writing and share it with the few people that you trust within a circle. If it's painting, obviously you've got to start somewhere. Just start at the beginning. I have art demos even on my YouTube channel that can be encouraging to you to get started. Start with coloring. Maybe that's the catalyst that will get you started to something. But never let the fear of not being the best at something keep you from not enjoying what you can get out of it. The whole satisfaction comes from the doing and the playing out of those talents that you have been given, but maybe you don't realize it yet.
And Pamela, where can we find you online?
I am online for my artwork at PamelaPoole.com, and under the books section, I have a lot of information about my books. I'm under SouthernSkyPublishing.com, and then I have all kinds of profiles, my YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook. I've got 3 different Facebook accounts, my personal, my Pamela Poole Fine Art, and Southern Sky, and then on Twitter it's Pamela Poole Art and Southern Sky as well.
Pamela, thank you so much for your words of encouragement to our aspiring authors out there. Thank you for coming on to the show. We'd love to have you back real soon. I'm so excited to continue to follow the characters of Painter Place. And thank you once again for being with us on the show.
Thank you so much. It was an honor and a delight to get to talk to you, Parker.
We had a wonderful time talking to Pamela Poole. She is the author of the new book, Jaguar, which is book 3 of the Painter Place saga. But if you want to find out what happened before then, go ahead and get a copy of Painter Place and Hugo, which is books 1 and 2 of the Painter Place saga. Follow this family and follow Caroline through her adventures, through her trials and tribulations. But what you're going to do is definitely grow to love her struggles, and first of all, love the Lord, because he gave Pamela this idea. Thank you so much for joining me for this edition of The Right Stuff. I am the Queen Tuesday nights, Dr. J, and you have a wonderful, absolutely glorious, blessed day. Thank you for joining us for this edition of The Right Stuff. Follow Parker online at parkerjcole.com. To hear this show and other shows, visit the show archive at therightstuffradio.wordpress.com. We'll be back same time next week, 7 p.m. Eastern Time.